All right, I want to talk about this. This is a case with the most predictable twist ending maybe in history. It started a few days ago, earlier in the week, when the media started frantically reporting about a guy named Chris Lewis, who was arrested in Georgia for leaving his kids aged 1, 6, and 10 at a McDonald's for 2 hours unattended so that he could go to a job interview. And the media ran with the story, tons of headlines about it. A lot of commentary on social media focusing on the fact that Chris Lewis is black. So the implication is that this was somehow racist as well. And before long, there was a GoFundMe that was established for this father that raised tens of thousands of dollars to give to this dad because he was just trying to better his life and better his children's lives. And, you know, people love donating to GoFundMes. And anytime there's a viral story about anyone who seems to be, you know, vaguely sympathetic, we know the GoFundMe is close behind and it's going to raise a lot of money. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, I saw this story and I didn't comment on it at first, even though I would tend to probably be on the side, or maybe not on the side of, but sympathetic to the father in this story. Like in this version of the story, if it was true, I would tend to be sympathetic to a father who did something like that in order to go to a job interview. It's a bad idea, don't get me wrong. I would not do that. It's a very bad idea. It's very ill-advised to leave a 10-year-old to watch a 1-year-old at McDonald's for 2 hours. Very bad idea. But if he's trying to go get a job and he's trying to better his life and the life of his children, then I'd be sympathetic. And I do think that we've gotten way, way too hyper and paranoid about leaving kids alone places. And, you know, I was just talking to somebody recently who had the cops called on him because he left a kid in the car for 5 minutes while he ran into a gas station. It was not hot out. Okay, it's not like it was 95 degrees. It was whatever, 65, 70 degrees. So it was a nice mild day. Doors were locked. They're in a safe part of town. The car was in sight the whole time. He just ran into the, you know, because maybe you pump the gas, you got to run into the store to get a couple things. So he could see the car the whole time. And I guess somebody's noticed this, called the cops, and then it becomes a whole thing. And, you know, so people are very hyper about it these days. Whereas when I was a kid, I feel like I spent half my childhood waiting in cars while my parents were in, you know, stores and running errands. Like this is like half my childhood was just sitting in a car waiting for my parents to come back. It was a very common thing. But these days you can't even do that. I mean, as you know how I feel about ditching shopping carts and parking lots. We've talked about that plenty of times, but still not nearly enough. And this is what you hear from a lot of mothers. They won't even leave their kid in the car alone for 20 seconds to walk across a parking lot. In a world that constantly challenges our values, now is a time to stand tall and boldly proclaim the truth. This is your moment, your opportunity to come together with top leaders from education, faith, media, and culture who are committed to making a difference. Our high-profile featured speakers, such as myself, Michael Knowles, Harrison Butker, Kirk Cameron, and Father Mike Schmitz, will share their powerful stories and insights on how to rise above fear and take a stand for the truth, no matter the cost. You'll be empowered to fearlessly stand up for your values and beliefs, knowing that you're called for such a time as this. It's going to be a great night filled with VIP parties, photo ops, meet and greets, and a call to action that will leave you inspired. It is more than an event, it's a call to action. Together, we'll ignite the courage needed to transform our culture and bring light into the darkness. Will you answer the call? All proceeds benefits furthering the mission of Courage Under Fire and Regina Celli Academy to change our culture through education, the arts, law, and the pro-life cause. Regina Celli Academy is the largest and only nationally accredited classical homeschool hybrid with 23 locations and counting across the country. To learn more about Regina Celli Academy and the Gala, head over to courageunderfiregala.org. That's courageunderfiregala.org. Use code IGNITE10 to receive 10% off your ticket today. Hurry, tickets are selling fast. What the hell's going to happen in that time? Nothing's going to happen. It'll be fine. But this is how we are. And not just in cars. I mean, we talked about stories where, you know, cops are called on parents because they let a 10-year-old walk down the street to a park alone, that sort of thing. We've basically made any form of independence for children illegal. And for no real reason, by the way. As I think most people understand intellectually at least, the worst case scenarios, like why wouldn't you just leave a kid alone, leave him in a car, leave him at home, for a limited amount of time. Why wouldn't you do that? What's the worst that could happen? And most people, the worst case scenario they're worried about is that, well, what if somebody comes and takes the kid? I leave my kid in the car for 5 minutes. What if somebody comes and steals my kid? But that is almost certainly not going to happen. I mean, you have to look at the stats, but I think the chance that your child is kidnapped by a stranger is basically in line with the chance that he's struck by lightning. It's just something that hardly ever happens. It's almost certainly not going to happen. And now, again, with that said, I still don't think you should leave a 1-year-old at McDonald's alone. Now, he wasn't alone. Granted, he was with a 10-year-old, but a 10-year-old's not old enough to watch a kid for 2 hours. So it's still a bad idea. But, I would be sympathetic if the story was true. But that brings us to the twist ending, which is that it's not true. Now we have the update from Outkick, who reports, quote, "The story of the Georgia man who says that he left his kids at a McDonald's to attend a job interview has taken quite a twist. In a supplemental police report obtained by Outkick from the Richmond County Sheriff's Department, police determined that Chris Lewis, the father of 3, did not attend a job interview while leaving his kids at an Augusta McDonald's. So they looked into it, and they found out that he was not going to a job interview. What was he actually doing? I don't think we know that yet. I would guess it's related to drugs. I don't know that, just to be clear. Just my guess, my best bet. Okay, if I was making a bet on FanDuel right now, that's what I would say. I put $1,000 on it. I feel pretty confident. And, or, maybe going to a strip club or something. It's usually something like that. And, I want to give people a hard time if they bought the job interview thing. If they thought that this was some kind of pursuit of happiness sort of story. Will Smith showing up to the job interview in a wife beater covered in paint, And I think a lot of people hear stories like this, and you want it to be something like that. And I want to give you a hard time for that, for being so naive, but I get it. I mean, I would rather live in a world where this story is believable. I read that story, and the first thing I thought is, yeah, bullshit, he didn't go to a job interview. First thing I thought. And I wish I was wrong. I really, truly do. I really wanted to see the update where, it turns out that the whole story was right. And maybe the company, whatever company he was applying for a job, maybe they come out and say, yeah, he was with an interview. He came to an interview. It was a great interview. He did great. We're going to hire him next week. Right? He's turning his life around. I really wish that was the case. I really wanted that to be true. But it just was certainly not going to be true. And it turns out that it isn't. Because that's not the actual world that we live in, I'm afraid to say. And I do think that a lot of people would do well to adopt just a bit more skepticism and even a little bit more cynicism. I'm not saying you have to be as cynical as I am all the time, but just a little bit more. And then, because if you have a little bit more cynicism, maybe you'll at least save your money next time there's a viral GoFundMe campaign going on. So, could save a little bit of money. And in this economy, we could all use that. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.